someone who's developing, is it biodegradable or earth-friendly medical supplies? I thought that was fantastic. That's such a great idea.
That's a fun one. It's a couple of women who kind of identify as being maybe mothers first, uh, began to appreciate that, all the things in their first aid kit were varyingly toxic, made of these forever chemicals that could, in the long run, harm the people that are using them, and would certainly be harmful to the planet in both in terms of their production and distribution, and more importantly, in their disposal. Right in the landfills, these would be the kinds of things that would never really, or at least not in a meaningful time frame, biodegrade. So these two women have built fully effective first aid tools that avoid plastics and forever chemicals, to be much more environmentally friendly and healthier for the users too. So it's kind of a fun thing, so that they're tackling first aid and skincare in a kind of a fresh way, and they're pretty savvy, pretty darn savvy. They've marketed, they kind of leveraged their motherliness a little bit in coming up with this and telling their story, but at the same time, they're very sophisticated marketers and technologists, and they're doing a great job in building a real business that seems to be on a great trajectory for scale. So that was a fun one that we just did this week.
Well, they sound like great projects, and what having three young boys, uh, first aid supplies is a line item in my budget.
That's right. Yeah,
But
you're happy if it does need stitches, right? If you don't need to go to the urgent care clinic for stitches, you're happy that you can just bandage it at home. Yeah,
thankfully, the closest hospital is only a mile and a half away, and we've
that's
got
handy.
their response timing down to the minute. Uh, but your what is the process? How do you find these companies, and how do they find you? And then how do you do the due diligence? What are some of your vetting criteria?
Yeah, so I am always looking to have people on the show that meet one of my investment criteria, that either it's social impact or an underrepresented founder. And so that's a primary criteria for being on the show. And it's not hard to find. We put together a list every week of the new offerings that fall into these categories. And so every week there are about a dozen new offerings. Now, I hope someday that list will be 10 times that. But right now it's about a dozen new offerings every week. So there are plenty of choices. So when I say I provide a pick a week, it's about a 1 out of 12 chance that your company will be the pick of the week. But from that list of 12, it's not hard to find one or two to be guests on the show. And I like to do 2 shows a week. So out of 12, I'm looking for 2 of those to be guests on the show. And it doesn't have to necessarily be from that week. But that gives me 12 fresh names to contact potentially. And we try to reach out to all the companies that are raising to let them know about what we're doing, and that they've been listed in our weekly list, and that we're trying to support them in one way or another. And we also do a mastermind group for issuers that are raising capital from the crowd. We meet twice a month, and so we've got that going. We do some advertising so that our if issuers want to reach our crowd, our newsletter, we've got about 8,000 people who read our newsletter. Many of them are active investors. You can advertise to our crowd affordably. So we're trying to do lots of things to support these issuers, but finding them isn't too hard because the data is public by definition with these regulations. There's a company called King's Crowd that tracks every offering. We use their research quite a bit, but we also use other tools to help us screen and identify which of the new offerings meet one of our criteria. We're always happy and eager to share them.